We are leaving Nigeria now. We are moving to Somalia. Chimgo's dream says Somalia has, yes, Somalia has gotten a new QR code standard. So why should we care what's happening with that story?
Okay. So yes, they've got a new QR code standard. Why should we care? So why we should care is because it's Somalia, basically, and it's African. Yes.
Okay.
So I think all of us here probably grew up with this image of Somalia as a country that was always at one conflict or involved in one conflict or the other. And what happens in such serious conflicts is vital infrastructure is destroyed. So telecommunications, finance, transportation, basically all the infrastructure you need to have a functioning economy.
Mm-hmm.
And Somalia has been hit very hard by this. So from 1991 to about 2009, they didn't have a functioning central bank, and that impacted them. So you couldn't just send money easily, you couldn't receive money easily, you couldn't make payments. Yeah, and you couldn't even send money. So let's say you're a Somali outside the country, it was difficult for you to send money home. So those were some of the challenges that they had. But since 2009 that the CBS, the Central Bank of Somalia, was sort of reinstated, they've been working really hard to ensure that they get the country back to its feet and basically make it very easy for people in the country to have financial transactions, basically. So they started, I think about 3 years ago, they launched a national payment system, making it easy for you to send money across all the banks in the country. So that was the first step. And recently, I think in March this year, they announced that all banks in the country, I think about 14 banks in the country, now use the international bank account numbers. So with that, it's easy for them to sort through transfers. Transfers can be done faster than it used to be. So those are some of the changes that they've been making. So if you were paying attention, I think sometime last month, Kenya also launched a QR code standard. So Kenya is like another East African country.
Kenya, when it comes to financial services in Africa, Kenya, the very largest sense.
Yeah, it's
on its own lane.
Yeah.
Yes. So so the thing is, it's very difficult to get a lot of data about Somalia. One thing I could find is the population, 60 million people. But why I was interested in this story was for two major reasons. It's a QR code. It's not just any other payment system. A QR code, and I found out that about 73% of the population use mobile money because that's what helps with transactions, transfers. Want to say something?
Internet penetration in the country is 2%.
Yes.
As of
2017,
according to International Telecommunication Union.
Yeah. So that's why it's interesting, right? If you have an internet penetration, okay, let's say somehow you've had a 10% or maybe 10% growth every year, and you've gone from that 2%. Let's be generous and say 40%, which is a huge leap.
So their mobile cellular subscription is about 8.8 million.
Yeah.
And that mobile, so it doesn't mean that you have
individual, it's unique.
It's unique, and also doesn't mean they all have internet access.
Yeah.
So it could just be people using feature phones.
Yes, so those are some of the reasons why I think it's an interesting development. So interesting in the sense that this is a country that has there's a serious need for a very good financial infrastructure, because as we all know, the financial infrastructure of the country is like the backbone of the economy. Without it, you can't sell, you can't buy things, and it affects everything. So that's why I was looking at that story. And yes, like you mentioned, low internet penetration. We don't have data for smartphone penetration, which people would use to scan this barcode. And the governor of the Central Bank of Somalia, he talked about this being a move to accelerate Somalia to a cashless society, and got me curious, because how do you go cashless when like this is mad leapfrogging here. How
it
do you go
basically
cashless?
reminds me of African governments and them being out of touch with reality of the citizens, because that is not my problem. I don't want to go I don't even have money in the first place.
Access first.
Yeah. So before now, I was looking. I saw some data about payment methods globally. I don't know if I can still find it, but I can't remember the country. But this is a country in Europe, and QR code has between I think 2020 to 2022, QR code payments has just gone from 0.0% to 0.6%, which doesn't look like a lot of growth if you're asking me. And an African country with low internet penetration, low smartphone penetration wants to drive cashless policy using QR codes. And I don't know why they decided that this was a policy direction that they would pursue, but it looks like you're doing all the wrong things, because first of all, you will need a lot of infrastructure, which these individuals probably do not own.
Yeah.
In fact, the infrastructure, it's
so
actually on the part of the people.
Users. Yeah, that's
slightly on the part of the people.
Because they need phones.
Your smartphone. I don't think smart feature phone, or those feature phone with a little bit of smart.
Yeah, I don't think they
have
that.
They don't.
Except there may be third-party apps. Maybe that can.
I think most of them don't even have third-party apps.
They do. So they have apps
maybe on
WhatsApp,
the Play Store
Facebook,
that you can download to do.
The Play Store is
it's very limited.
A lot of limitations for those for future smartphones. So I don't think they will have. Because you take pictures with it and the picture is looking all blurry. So how would that now read
a QR code?
Yeah, I mean, those are legitimate questions. Yeah, actually.
Say USSD
is
perfect. It's
perfect
very good.
I can use it on any smartphone.
8.8 million. So imagine, let's say, 8.8 million. About say 4 or 5 million of that have 5 million of that are unique subscribers.
How many of them possibly use feature
phone? Smart.
Even if they don't use feature phone, so far they are unique subscribers. Feature phone, smartphone. Yes. Then we now look how many of those are actually need these services.
Yep.
Yeah, especially when you consider that a lot of the population in Somalia live in rural areas. Like a huge percentage of the population live in rural areas. They are I think. The employment rate is around 40-something% according to data from their Bureau of Statistics. I think around 40-something%.
Like,
it's not up to 50%. So
they are putting the cart before the horse.
Something around USSD, if they don't have that already, will do way more better.
Yeah,
will have more impact on their financial system than say let's just dump the house.
Well, I mean, African countries are always shooting for the moon and hoping they land on. Is it shooting for the sun? I've had this to say.
Shooting for the moon, I hope you land on the stars. But I don't think they're going to land on any stars.
Landing on head, man.
But like Yinka said, I think that they are doing things that they should not be doing at a certain time. Yes, okay, it's important to have a QR code standard, but what is the reality of the citizens that you are supposedly serving? Do they even have money for you to even start a cashless payment? Like
it's just
African countries, please do better.
Help us.
Do better. So that we will not come on this podcast and we're always bashing you. Please.
Here's the thing. Even if you did a QR code, decided to do a QR code policy in Nigeria, you will still be. I mean, you're not really. I don't think you will move the needle from a. Okay, yes, it's a more like it's an easier mode of transaction compared to maybe a bank transfer or maybe a POS payment. It's slightly easier. Like I just need to
use internet.
Yeah. You use the internet, but for example, I don't need to put in.
Okay.
PIN and all of that. I just scan
and then it gets
and I make.
Yeah.
So that is slightly easier. But I do not think that a lot of Nigerians will rush at.
Yeah.
That.
There are a lot of big attitude when they started. It was like, yes, just scan and, but what's the usage?
I mean,
and that's Nigeria a country that is like our internet penetration depending on
Who you ask?
it's high.
Well, let's leave Somalia to their QR code woes and their cashless payment woes.